Have you ever opened your eyes in the morning, looked at the clock, and felt a very subtle yet very real force pulling you to stay in bed? Not because you are too sleepy, not because you are lazy, but because of something far harder to name. You do not want to step into a new day. There is no obvious tragedy, just a sense that your body is slowing down, as if it is hesitating on your behalf. Carl Jung, who spent his entire life listening to the deepest layers of the mind, believed that no state appears without reason. When the body refuses to begin the day, it is not a mechanical malfunction, but a psychological signal. A part of the unconscious is trying to say what consciousness has ignored for far too long. What is worth noting is this: that message rarely comes in words. It comes through fatigue, through a sense of emptiness, through the way every morning turns into a silent negotiation between you and yourself. And the more you try to force it, the more the body resists. In this video, I will walk with you through 9 layers of meaning hidden behind the inability to get out of bed in the morning. Not hollow advice about discipline or motivation, but the way Carl Jung viewed exhaustion, as a message from the psyche. Each part goes 1 layer deeper, helping you understand what within you is changing, what has reached the point of needing to be released, and why staying in bed is sometimes not a failure, but a necessary transition. And pay special attention to meaning number 9, because it is exactly what many people are experiencing the most right now, yet often misunderstand completely. Number 1. When the body refuses the morning. Carl Jung once said, "Fatigue is not always of the body. Sometimes, it is the voice of a neglected soul." There are mornings when you open your eyes not because you have slept enough, but because your body forces you awake for the goals of daily living. Light slips through your eyelids. The familiar sound of the alarm clock rings out. Everything follows the same rhythm as any other day. But in that very moment, something inside you quietly resists. Not violently, not clearly. Just a feeling that is very real, very human. I cannot step into today. You do not feel sleepy in the usual way. Your mind is not foggy. You still know what day it is, what you need to do, what tasks are waiting, but your body does not cooperate. It feels heavy. It feels slow. It is as if you are glued to the bed by an invisible force. And in that slowness, you begin to ask yourself, what is wrong with me? The alarm goes off, and your hand turns it off before your conscious mind has time to intervene. Not because you want to sleep more, but because there is a very fast, very instinctive reflex. Not yet. I am not ready. You lie still, not exactly to avoid getting up, but as if you are postponing having to face something ahead. The body feels pressed down, not painful, but not light at all. You are not truly sleepy, yet you cannot get up. You cannot step into the new day. And then the familiar emotion appears. Heaviness, avoidance, accompanied by a vague layer of guilt. That guilt is not loud. It does not scold you. It only whispers, "Why are you like this? There is nothing to be tired about. Other people can do it." You start comparing. You start blaming yourself. And very quickly, you stick a familiar label onto yourself. Lazy, lazy to get up, lazy to live, lazy to try. But if you pause a little longer and observe more closely, you will see that something does not quite add up. Because if this were laziness, why would it feel so heavy? Why does it not bring the ease of rest, but only the pressure of avoidance? According to Jung, when the conscious ego is forced to operate beyond its limits, the psyche withdraws energy from the surface in order to protect deeper layers. Put very simply, when you have tried for too long to live correctly, live sufficiently, live reasonably, while inwardly there is no longer agreement, the mind will find a way to pull you back. Not through words, not through clear thoughts, but through the body, through slowing you down, through making it impossible for you to stand up as you once did. I once met someone like this in a work environment. From the outside, she was the kind of person no one would think had a problem. She arrived on time. She completed her tasks. She did not complain. She did not cause trouble, but she told me that every morning, before getting out of bed, she had to negotiate with herself. There were days when just sitting up made her heart race. Not because of any specific worry, but because of the feeling of having to step into yet another day, into yet another role. She did not hate her job. She simply no longer felt that she was living inside it. And her body knew that long before her reason did. Perhaps you are in that state as well. You still go to work regularly. You still reply to messages. You still complete the necessary tasks. But every morning, you have to fight your own body. Fight to sit up, fight to get dressed, fight to leave the house. And the more you fight, the more exhausted you become. Because this battle is not between you and the bed. It is a battle between you and some part inside that is saying, I do not want to continue like this anymore. The hardest thing about this state is that it is very easy to misunderstand. Others look at you and say, you must be lacking sleep lately. Or, just push through. This phase will pass. And you tell yourself, I am too weak. But rarely does anyone ask the more important question, what am I resisting? Because the body rarely resists without reason. It only resists when there is no other way left to be heard. Try paying attention. When does that inability to get up in the morning feel strongest? Is it on days when you have to do something you no longer truly believe in? Is it on days when you have to enter an environment that forces you to tense up just to fit in? Or days when you know you will once again have to swallow a certain emotion so that everything looks fine? If you observe honestly, you may very well realize this. You do not hate mornings. You hate the life that is waiting for you after you wake up. So what should you do in that moment? Not force yourself to get up faster, not scold yourself more harshly, and not immediately search for a formula to stop being tired. The first and most important solution is to stop labeling yourself as lazy. That label is too easy. It helps you end the story very quickly, but the price you pay is that you no longer hear what is truly happening inside you. Instead, try acknowledging something simpler, but more honest. My body is reacting for a reason. Just changing the inner sentence from I am lazy to I am reacting creates a very large difference. Because when you call it a reaction, you implicitly acknowledge that there is a cause. There is something creating pressure. And if there is pressure, then the body's reluctance to move forward is no longer wrong, but reasonable. You do not need to decode that reason immediately. You do not need to have an answer this very morning. What matters is that you do not betray the first signal your body sends out. Self-respect does not begin with how many things you accomplish in a day. Self-respect begins in the moment you believe that your feelings have value, that this heaviness is not something to be pushed down, but something that needs to be listened to. Perhaps right now, you will still have to get up, still have to go to work, still have to step into the new day, but the way you step into it will be different. No longer blind force, but a greater awareness. I know that I am tired, and I will not pretend that this does not exist. That awareness is precisely the beginning of real change. And if, as you listen to this, you feel your chest sink a little, or your mind suddenly grow quieter, then perhaps this story is not unfamiliar to you. Perhaps you have had mornings like this as well. Mornings when the body refused not because you were weak, but because some part inside you was exhausted from being neglected. In the next part, we will continue to go deeper into a very common misunderstanding, that fatigue is the same as a lack of willpower, and why, according to Jung, that is often completely the opposite. Number 2, exhaustion is not a lack of willpower. And usually, when you cannot get up in the morning, the first thing you do is blame yourself. You call it laziness, weakness, a lack of discipline. You compare yourself to people who wake up early, exercise, start their day full of enthusiasm, and then you draw a quick conclusion. Something must be wrong with me. But what if that is not the truth? What if that exhaustion is not because you are not strong enough, but because a part of you no longer wants to continue in the old way? There is a very peculiar kind of fatigue. It does not come after an overly exhausting workday. It does not disappear when you sleep more. It is also not loud like stress or anxiety. It feels like a quiet withdrawal. You still work, you still answer emails, you still fulfill your responsibilities, but inside, something has stopped participating. You are no longer excited about what once mattered. Things that once made you strive now feel like nothing more than a to-do list. You do everything on autopilot, as if driving a familiar road, but no longer looking at the scenery along the way. This feeling is hard to name. It is not exactly sadness, not exactly boredom, just a very subtle emptiness, yet a persistent one. A familiar sense appears more and more often. I am no longer there. You are physically present, but mentally you have stepped back. You smile at the right moments, say the right words, but you do not truly touch what is happening. And in the morning, when you have to begin that loop again, your body slows down as a form of protest. According to Jung, there are periods in life when vital energy no longer flows strongly outward. Carl Jung said, "Energy never disappears. It is only transformed." He called this phenomenon libido, turning inward. Put more simply, energy does not vanish. It only changes direction. When you have invested for too long in adapting, pleasing, maintaining roles, while your inner life is not being nourished, energy will withdraw, not to punish you, but to force you to look again. This is easily misunderstood in a world that worships willpower. We are taught that if we are determined enough, everything will function. That fatigue means we have not tried hard enough. But Jung saw it differently. He believed that when energy no longer pours into old goals, this is not a collapse, but a sign that the psyche is searching for a different center, a different task, a different meaning. I once witnessed this in a friend who worked in a creative field. For many years, he lived up to the image of a successful person, steady projects, good income, recognition. But then there came a period when he said that every morning he woke up without feeling eager. Not because the work had become harder, everything was still fine. But he no longer felt that he was creating something alive. He still worked, but like a machine, running on pre-written code. The lights were still on, but the living room was empty, and his body reacted very clearly. Mornings became heavy, not because of lack of sleep, but because there was no longer an inner reason to step into a new day. That image of the house fits this state very well. A house where the lights are still on, the doors are still open, everything still functions, but no one is sitting in the living room anymore. No conversation, no presence. You can live in that house for a long time, but with each passing day, there is a little more emptiness. And in the morning, when you have to return to that space, your body will look for ways to delay. So try asking yourself gently, lately, what in your life is still operating? But inside your soul, you no longer feel any joy. A job you still do well, but no longer see yourself in? A relationship that still exists but no longer nourishes you? A goal that once mattered deeply but now feels like nothing more than an obligation? This question does not need an immediate answer. It only needs to be asked, so that you can recognize that this fatigue may be a signal, not a mistake. What is worth noting is that when energy changes direction, our habitual reaction is to try to pull it back. You look for ways to get your motivation back. You force yourself to think more positively. You tell yourself to be stronger. But the more you pull, the more tired you become, because you are using willpower to fight against a deeper movement. A movement that, if listened to, could lead you somewhere else, somewhere more aligned with the person you are becoming. Instead of trying to get your motivation back, perhaps what you need right now is to stop pulling yourself back into the old groove. Not because you are giving up, but because something in you no longer wants to invest energy in that way. And that is not wrong. It simply shows that your vitality is seeking a different direction in which to flow. You might try observing very small moments. When you no longer feel excited about familiar tasks, where does your mind drift? When you allow yourself not to force things, what appears in the silence? It may be a question you have postponed for too long. It may be a sadness you previously had no time to feel. It may also be a very simple desire that was pushed aside because it was deemed inappropriate. These things are not signs of weakness. They are where energy is gathering. And if you are patient enough to look there, instead of trying to drag yourself back to an old state, you will realize that this fatigue is not asking you to try harder. It is only asking you to be more honest with what is truly alive inside you. Always remember that you do not need to act immediately on these signals. Jung did not advise rushing into action. He advised listening. Jung, because if you force yourself back into the old groove, when energy has already withdrawn, you are only prolonging the exhaustion. But if you allow yourself to look toward the direction energy wants to move, even with simple curiosity, you have already begun to cooperate with yourself. You may realize that you need a pause, not to escape, but to reorient. You may see that what you call a lack of willpower is actually honesty slowly rising to the surface. A part of you no longer wants to invest in things that no longer hold meaning. And that, though uncomfortable, is a sign of inner maturation. You are not useless. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are being called back inward, called to examine what you are living for, and whether that still lives within you. Fatigue in this phase is not an enemy. It is a messenger, and if you do not shoot it down with self-blame, you may begin to hear the message it carries. If these lines make you nod, or make you feel seen, then perhaps you are not alone in this experience. Perhaps you too are in a phase where energy no longer rushes outward, but is quietly turning back. In the next part, we will go deeper into a very specific cause of that return. When you are exhausted from living as someone who no longer fits who you truly are. Number 3. You are exhausted because you are no longer the person you've been living as. Fatigue does not always come from workload or lack of sleep. Sometimes, what exhausts you the most is having to be someone you no longer are. You still fulfill your role, still meet your responsibilities, still maintain an appearance of being fine, but each passing morning feels like putting on a shirt that has grown too tight, not because it is ugly, but because you have grown, while the shirt has not. This kind of fatigue is very hard to explain to others, because from the outside, everything still functions. You are still punctual, still professional, still know what needs to be done. But inside, a growing distance appears between the person you are living as and the person you are presenting. And that distance does not hurt immediately. It erodes, quietly, a little more, each day. You are most exhausted when you have to play a role, not a stage role, but everyday roles. The enthusiastic one, the always available one, the strong one, the ambitious one. Roles that once felt real, that once helped you get through an important phase, but now, every time you put them back on, they feel heavy. You find yourself repeating familiar lines without the emotions that once came with them. You do everything right, but you no longer feel yourself there. The more you try to resemble your old version, the more exhausted you become. Because that version is not wrong. It is simply no longer suitable. It is like a piece of software that once ran perfectly on an old operating system, but as you have changed, it begins to cause errors, not technical errors, existential ones. You begin to feel inauthentic in a very subtle way, not inauthentic because you are deceiving others, but because you are deceiving yourself. This feeling often comes with an emptiness that is hard to name. You do not know what you want, but you know very clearly that you no longer want what is happening. You do not hate your life, but you no longer feel that you are living inside it. And in the morning, when you have to step into a new day carrying all those familiar roles, your body reacts before you even have time to think. It slows down. It delays. It looks for ways to stay still. Jung called this phenomenon antiodromia. When consciousness has gone too far in one direction, the unconscious pulls you toward the opposite direction to restore balance. He once wrote, "The persona is a compromise between the individual and society as to what a man should appear to be." Put more plainly, when you have lived too long according to an image, an expectation, a role, while neglecting other parts of yourself, the psyche creates a counterforce, not to destroy you, but to bring you closer to the truth that is forming within. I once met someone who had been very ambitious. His schedule was packed from morning to night. Life revolved around goals, plans, metrics. For many years, he was praised for his persistence and tireless energy. But then there came a period when he told me that every morning, the only thing he wanted was to disappear from the schedule. Not to go far away. Just not to show up. No meetings, no goals, no roles. That feeling frightened him, because it ran completely counter to the person he had believed himself to be. What was interesting was that he was not tired because he was doing more than before. He was tired because he was still trying to maintain an image that had already completed its mission. An image that once helped him go far, but now kept him standing still. And his body, more honest than any analysis, began to refuse cooperation. No illness, no breakdown, just an inability to get up in the morning. This is where misunderstanding easily arises. People will advise you to rest, change environments, find your motivation again. But if the issue does not lie in intensity, but in identity, then every attempt to recharge only makes you more exhausted, because you are trying to refuel a machine that no longer fits the current journey. Try asking yourself, very gently, which version of you is being maintained merely out of habit or expectation? The version that always tries? The version that is not allowed to be weak? The version that must succeed by a very specific definition? You may not have chosen that version consciously. It may have formed long ago, from family, environment, moments when you were rewarded for being right. But what was right in the past does not mean it remains right forever. There is a deep fear in this phase. The fear of not knowing who you are if you let go of the old role. Fear of emptiness. Fear of ambiguity. But Jung did not see ambiguity as failure. He saw it as a necessary in-between space for a new identity to form. And so, the gentlest thing you can do for yourself right now is not to redefine yourself quickly, but to allow yourself not to know what to do yet. Allow yourself not to know who you are in this phase. Do not rush to label. Do not rush to decide. Do not rush to answer the question, who will I become? Because that question can only be answered after you have truly left the old role behind. And that leaving does not happen through a forceful decision, but through a series of small signals. Feeling more tired when playing a role, lighter when silent, emptier when trying, and sometimes deeply sad when you realize you have lived too long for an image that no longer lives inside you. Boundaries begin to form here, not boundaries with others, but boundaries with roles that have already died. A boundary is the moment you stop forcing yourself to appear in the old way, just to keep everything looking fine. A boundary is when you dare to admit, I am no longer that person, even if you do not yet know who you will become. And if your mornings feel heavy, if your body is refusing to stand up, perhaps it is not resisting life. It is resisting a role that has expired. It is trying to create a pause so that you do not continue moving farther in a form that can no longer contain the person you are becoming. If, as you listen to this, you feel your chest tighten, or feel that you are being named, then perhaps you are not alone. Perhaps you too are standing at that boundary. The boundary between who you once were and who is quietly forming. Before we move on to the next part, we would like to take a moment to thank you for staying with us until the end of part 3 of this journey. Your presence here, listening and reflecting on why we cannot get up in the morning, is not merely watching a video, but a moment in which you are truly in dialogue with yourself. Your presence and patience are something we deeply appreciate. To help these insights reach more people, please like and share the video. Every small action you take helps spread the understanding Carl Jung left behind, insights that may help someone better understand their own mind. And do not forget, Part 4 is waiting for you right after this, where we will explore the avoided emotions that are demanding a voice. Thank you for walking with us. And please stay to listen to what your soul has been trying to say all along. Now, we will move together into Part 4, to go deeper into another layer of this fatigue. When the emotions you have avoided for too long begin to demand the right to speak, and why the body becomes the place where they find a way out. Number 4. Avoided emotions are demanding their right to speak. And when you have tried to live in the right role for a long time, one almost unavoidable consequence is that emotions get left behind. Not because you do not have emotions, but because you do not allow yourself to stop and feel them. Sorrows that were never named, exhaustion that was never acknowledged, anger swallowed because it was not the right time. You keep going, Keep doing. Keep making everything look fine. And when the mind no longer has space to take anything in, the body has to speak for you, in the only way it can, by pulling you down into stillness. There is a kind of sadness that is very familiar, yet rarely allowed to fully appear. You feel your heart sink, but you do not cry. You know you are sad, but you do not consider that sadness legitimate enough to stop for. You might tell yourself, there is nothing to be sad about. Others have it worse. I need to be stronger. And so that emotion is pushed aside, neatly, politely, properly. It does not disappear. It simply is not allowed to live. The same happens with anger. You feel uncomfortable, invaded, overwhelmed, but you swallow it. You are afraid that if you speak up, things will become more complicated. You are afraid of becoming difficult, afraid of disappointing others. So you smile, you nod, you continue. The anger does not pass through, does not transform. It settles, accumulates, lying still like a heavy mass in the body. And then, a very characteristic state appears. You are always fine until the body collapses. There are no clear warning signs, no crying spells, no panic, no public breakdown. You simply feel more and more tired. Mornings become harder to get up from. The body feels heavier. The mind feels emptier. You still work, but every task takes twice the energy. And you begin to wonder, what am I lacking? When the truth may be that you are carrying too much that has never been felt. Here, Jung made a very important observation. He believed that emotions that are not lived do not disappear. They return in another form, not through words, but through symptoms, not through thoughts, but through the body. He once wrote, "What we do not make conscious appears in our lives as fate." When an inner experience is not brought into awareness, it will find a way to appear in life, as if it were inevitable. If you apply this idea to your mornings, it takes on a very concrete meaning. When you do not allow yourself to be sad, the body carries that sadness. When you do not allow yourself to be angry, the body holds that tension. When you do not allow yourself to be tired, the body forces you to stop. Fatigue, at this point, is not emptiness. It is overload, an overload of emotions that have not been processed, not spoken, not breathed through. I once heard someone describe this feeling very precisely. I don't feel sad in a way that makes me want to cry. I just feel like I'm carrying too many things and don't know where to put them down. She was someone who always maintained a stable image in both family and work. The listener, the fixer, the one who was fine. But one day, her body stopped cooperating. She could not get up in the morning. Not because of clear depression, not because of a specific event, but because all the emotions had piled up for too long and there was no more space to hold them. Imagine your emotional life as an inbox. Every day, small messages arrive: sadness, anger, disappointment, exhaustion, worry. If you read them, respond to them, delete them when you are done, the inbox functions. But if you leave them there unopened, undeleted, unanswered, at some point the system will refuse to receive more. Not because there are no new messages, but because it is too full. Your body works the same way. When the emotional inbox is overloaded, it blocks the outward flow, and you experience that as prolonged fatigue. What makes this state so uncomfortable is that it does not give you a clear story. You cannot say, "I am tired because of this one thing." You only know that you are tired. And when there is no clear reason, you become even more likely to blame yourself. But if you look back, you may very well see a long chain of ignored emotions. Times you wanted to cry, but told yourself not to. Moments you wanted to say no, but still nodded yes. Days you felt exhausted but kept trying to appear normal. Try pausing for a moment and asking yourself, without needing to answer anyone else, which emotion have you not allowed yourself to feel for a long time? A sadness that was never named? Anger that was suppressed to keep the peace? Disappointment in yourself that you have not dared to face? Or an emptiness you fear that, if acknowledged, you would not know what to do next? This question is not meant to dig things up or make you hurt more. It is simply to help you see that your body is not reacting without reason. It is carrying what the mind has refused. And in many cases, what the body needs is not more rest, but permission. Permission for emotions to exist without explanation, without justification, without needing to be right. End quote. Permission to be sad, even without a big reason. Permission to be tired, even while everyone around you keeps running. This may sound simple, but for many people, it is a very courageous act, because it goes against the habit of control, against the belief that your value lies in how much you can do. Jung did not advise people to run away from emotions. He believed that emotions are the instincts of meaning. They tell us what matters, what is wounded, what needs attention. When you allow yourself to feel, you do not become weaker. You restore a very basic channel of information between you and yourself. This does not mean you have to drown in emotions or analyze everything immediately. It simply means that when an emotion appears, you do not push it away. You do not rush to fix it. You do not rush to label it as wrong. You let it be there long enough to be recognized. Sometimes, being recognized alone already lightens a great deal. Self-respect, at this stage, does not lie in continuing to perform your role well. Self-respect lies in allowing yourself compassion, not just being able to do, but being allowed to be. Being someone who is tired, being someone who is not okay yet, being someone who needs to stop in order to feel. When you give yourself that permission, the body no longer has to carry things for the mind. And mornings may gradually feel less heavy, not because life has changed overnight, but because you have begun to listen to what it has been trying to say. If these lines make you feel seen, or make you want to slow your breathing just a little, then perhaps you are touching something very real. And in the next part, we will look at this fatigue from yet another angle. When lying down is no longer an act of avoidance, but becomes a transitional phase, where the old dissolves so that the new can begin to form. Number 5. Lying down as a transitional phase. There is a very common misunderstanding that lying down means giving up. That when you no longer want to wake up early, no longer want to continue the old rhythm, no longer want to try the way you used to, you must be sliding backward. But in many cases, especially after a long period of pushing yourself, the body forcing you to stop is not a sign of collapse, but a signal that you are standing in the middle of a deeper transition. When the old self can no longer function, and the new self has not yet fully formed, the body chooses the only option it has: to stop, not to escape, but to wait for restructuring. This feeling is often very uncomfortable because it does not give you a clear identity. You no longer want to continue as before. Goals that once made you wake up with determination now feel distant. Familiar schedules suddenly make you feel suffocated, but at the same time, you also do not yet know what you want instead. You do not have a new direction clear enough to hold on to. And so you are left suspended between two states. No longer the old person, but not yet knowing how to be the new one. In that suspended space, the body often reacts in very concrete ways. You do not want to continue what you are doing, but you also do not have enough energy to initiate anything new. You feel stuck, as if every option is mistimed. There are days when you lie down not exactly because you are physically tired, but because you do not know where you would stand up to go. You might sit for a long time staring at the ceiling, or hold your phone without really reading anything. Not fully sad, not fully restless, just a lingering, in-between feeling. What makes this phase heavy is that it goes against how we have been taught to live. We are used to having answers, having plans, knowing where we are going. And when those are missing, the mind begins to panic. It keeps asking, what am I doing with my life? Am I wasting time? Am I falling behind? While the body is saying something very different. Not yet. Here, Jung had a very particular way of viewing such periods. He believed that in the process of psychological maturation, a person must pass through phases of inner conflict, where two opposing forces coexist and stretch consciousness. He called this the tension of opposites, a state that cannot be bypassed on the path of individuation. And Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. No expansion of consciousness happens without going through a period that is uncomfortable, ambiguous, and even painful. Seen this way, lying down is no longer a negative act. It is the natural response of the psychological system when it is between two structures. The old has not fully withdrawn, so you cannot completely let go. The new has not yet taken shape, so you cannot move forward. And in that gap, the body chooses to keep you still, so as not to force you into decisions before you are ready. I once witnessed someone remain in this state for a very long time. She had been extremely energetic, with a schedule packed, week after week, always chasing the next goal. But after an event that was not particularly dramatic, just a prolonged stretch of exhaustion, she began to be unable to get up in the morning, not because of obvious depression, not because of a specific failure, simply because she no longer wanted to continue the old rhythm, yet could not imagine a different one. For many months, she blamed herself relentlessly, until she realized what was dying was not her willpower, but a version of herself that had already completed its role. This phase is like the image of a caterpillar in its cocoon. It is no longer a caterpillar, so it cannot crawl as before, but it is not yet a butterfly, so it cannot fly. If you look from the outside, it lies still, doing nothing. But inside, an extremely complex process of restructuring is taking place. Old cells dissolve, new structures form. And most importantly, that process cannot be rushed. If you cut the cocoon too early, the butterfly will never have the strength to fly. Human beings are the same. When you are in the middle of a transition, every attempt to force yourself to decide quickly, get back on track, or do something worthwhile can backfire. Not because you are wrong, but because you are trying to use tools from an old phase to deal with a new state, and the body, very intelligently, will continue to resist until you are willing to stop in the right way. You might ask yourself, without needing an immediate answer, what are you between? And between what? Between a familiar job and a new, unnamed need? Between an old relationship and a more independent version of yourself? Between continuing to please others and listening to yourself? This question does not need a clear answer. It only needs to be asked, so you can recognize that this suspended feeling has its context. In this phase, the hardest thing is not the lack of direction, but the discomfort of not knowing. We often want to jump quickly to an answer to escape the anxiety, but Jung believed that the ability to stay with contradiction, without rushing to resolve it, is what allows consciousness to expand. When you allow opposing forces to coexist without forcing one to win immediately, a new structure will gradually emerge, more natural, more fitting. That emergence may be very small at first, not a major decision, but a slightly lighter feeling in the morning, not a clear plan, but a fleeting thought that sparks curiosity, not a burst of motivation, but a quiet interest returning. These signs are easy to overlook if you are too busy blaming yourself for not having done anything yet. Staying with the state of not knowing is not giving up. It is a deeper form of trust, trusting that your psyche knows what it needs, even when consciousness cannot yet name it. This requires you to loosen the pressure to become someone immediately, to loosen the question of who you are, and allow it to remain suspended for a while. Many people fear this phase because they mistake it for falling behind, but falling behind is when you keep running in a direction that no longer fits. Transition, on the other hand, is when you stop because the old direction is no longer right, and the new one is not yet ready. From the outside, the two may look similar, but inside, they are completely different. One is depletion, the other is restructuring. If you are lying down more than before, if you feel that you no longer want to continue as you used to, yet cannot name what comes next, try looking at that state with a different gaze. Not a judgmental one, but a curious one. What in me needs to change form? Which role has already completed its task that I am still trying to hold on to? Which rhythm of life no longer fits the person I am becoming? The most important message of this phase is this: you are not falling behind. You are transitioning. And every transition requires time, silence, and a kind of patience very different from what society usually encourages. When you allow yourself to lie down as part of that process, you are not betraying life. You are cooperating with it, on a deeper level. Having accompanied you this far, I would really like to invite you to join the conversation with us in the comments. Recently, have you been going through a phase where you only want to lie down, where everything seems to slow and you are forced to stop? We would truly love to hear your story and your reflections. And right after this, let us move together into the next part, where we will talk about a very special moment when life begins to shift, when meaning returns before energy, when you may not have much strength yet, but you already have a reason to open your eyes. And that is often the sign that this transitional phase is gradually coming to completion in a way that is uniquely your own. Number 6. When meaning returns before energy. What is interesting is that when that phase of lying down is respected, the return rarely begins with energy. It does not arrive as a sudden, clear-headed morning or a burst of excitement that makes you want to start everything over. The return, if you are subtle enough to notice it, usually begins with meaning. A small interest returns. Something makes you want to linger a little longer. A fleeting thought, but one that is enough to stir something inside you. Not loud, not exhilarating, but enough for you to know that, within yourself, a new current is quietly taking shape. It might be a morning when you are still tired, still not ready to jump out of bed, but suddenly, you notice the light outside the window. Not to take a photo, not to post anything, just that you find it beautiful in a very particular way. Or a sentence you happen to read makes you pause and read it again. Or someone else's story makes something inside you vibrate, even if only faintly. These signals are so small that if you are still too busy blaming yourself for not being well again, you will miss them. At this stage, outward behavior has not changed much. You are not doing more. You are not more productive. In fact, you may still lie down quite a lot. But inside, there is a subtle difference. You begin to care again. Not in the old way, not toward the goals that once exhausted you, but in a very gentle, very personal way. Something that does not demand that you become anyone, but makes you want to be present a little longer. The emotion that accompanies this stage is also very distinctive. It is not explosive joy, but a slow warming. Not motivation, but presence. You may still be tired, but no longer as empty as before. There are brief moments when you feel yourself there, rather than merely existing on autopilot, and it is precisely these small moments that are often the first signs that the transition process is nearing its end. Jung called this state integration. It is when energy returns to consciousness, but no longer in its old form. It carries with it what was learned during the lying down phase. No longer energy to run, to conquer, to prove, but energy with meaning. Jung once wrote, "Meaning makes a great many things endurable, perhaps everything. When meaning appears, even fatigue becomes something different. It is no longer a nameless burden, but part of a process." What matters most here is this: meaning always returns before energy. We usually expect the opposite. We wait until we feel healthier, more motivated, and only then allow ourselves to care again. But the psyche operates by a different logic. When something inside you begins to feel meaningful again, energy will gradually follow. If you demand that you must be normal again, right away, you may inadvertently crush those very fragile sprouts. I once met someone like this. After a long period of exhaustion, she did not feel better in the usual sense. But one day, she noticed that she began paying attention to cooking for herself, not out of responsibility, but because she enjoyed choosing ingredients. That was all. No healthy living plan, no self-improvement goals. But that small interest opened the door to a chain of other changes. She did not do more. She simply lived more truthfully. And that is often the essence of this stage. Not wanting to do more, but wanting to live more rightly. You begin to see more clearly what no longer fits you. You are no longer interested in returning to old rhythms just to prove that you are fine. You also do not rush to attach yourself to a new role. Instead, you listen to very small, very personal signals that you previously were not quiet enough to notice. You might ask yourself, very gently, lately, what small thing has held your attention or stirred your feelings? An old piece of music? A short but genuine conversation? A thought about a direction that is unclear but sparks curiosity? Do not judge these things as too small. At this stage, the small is what is real. The big usually comes later, when the new structure is strong enough. Following these small signals requires a different kind of patience than before. Not patience to wait until you are stronger, but patience not to disrupt what is forming. You do not need to force yourself back into the old groove. You also do not need to keep asking, when will I be normal again? Because it is very possible that what you once called normal no longer fits the person you are becoming. At this stage, the easiest trap to fall into is comparison. Comparing yourself to your old version, comparing yourself to others, comparing your pace of recovery to the inspirational stories out there. But if you look closely, true return never looks the same for two people. Some return very quickly, but superficially. Others return more slowly, but more deeply. And Jung always emphasized that individuation is a path that cannot be copied. The most important message of this stage is this: the self returns before energy surges. Before you have the strength to do a lot, you need to feel that you are living rightly. Before you have motivation, you need meaning. And when meaning has taken root, energy will come not as pressure to do something, but as a natural current that carries you forward. If you are in this stage, be gentle with yourself. Trust the small movements. Do not demand that you return to your old form. Perhaps you will not come back in the way you once imagined. Perhaps you will move forward differently, more slowly, more deeply, and more honestly. And if one morning you still cannot quite get up, but you know clearly why you still want to open your eyes, that is already a very clear sign. Within you, a new life is learning how to stand up, not hurried, not loud, but very real. And have you ever gone through a moment when meaning in life began to return, but energy had not yet caught up? When you knew clearly what mattered, but your body and mind could not yet move forward immediately? Your story could become a valuable perspective, helping us reflect and learn together. Leave a comment below and join the conversation. Number 7. When the ego is no longer the center. Fatigue does not always come from overload or injury. There are phases when you are tired, for a very strange reason. You no longer feel that you are the center of your own life. Things that once revolved around, what do I have to do, who do I have to become, suddenly lose their pull. You do not collapse. You still live, still work, still reply to messages. But a little deeper down, you realize that you no longer want to control everything the way you used to. Not because of helplessness, but because a part of you has quietly insisted, enough. This feeling is usually not dramatic. It does not arrive through a major event. It comes quietly, like placing your hands on the steering wheel but no longer gripping it tightly. Before, you drove firmly. You were used to having to direct, set goals, control the route. Now, you are still sitting there, but your grip has loosened. You begin to observe more than you drive. And it is precisely this very small shift that leaves you unsettled. You are no longer interested in proving yourself. Comparisons that once made you restless now pass by more lightly. Success or failure no longer triggers strong reactions. Not because you have become numb, but because they no longer hit the same place. You feel as if you are stepping back slightly, watching life unfold, instead of trying to pull it toward you. At times you feel confused, at times a little empty. But strangely, you are not as panicked as before. The core feeling here is a loss of ego orientation, a lighter state, but a very unfamiliar one. I have met many people who pass through this phase, and what they share is not weakness, but that they have lived long enough in the role of the one in control. They are used to being at the center of every decision, choosing direction, setting standards, judging right and wrong. When the ego functions efficiently, it gives you a sense of power, but it also consumes a great deal of energy. And at a certain point, that system begins to withdraw on its own. Jung had a very clear perspective on this moment. He believed that in the process of psychological maturation, the ego cannot remain the center forever. At a certain point, psychic energy withdraws from the ego and moves toward a deeper center of the self. This is not weakening, but a transfer of inner authority. Jung once wrote, "The ego is not the center of the psyche, but only the center of consciousness." When consciousness understands this, much exhaustion can finally be placed where it belongs. The most uncomfortable part of this phase is that you do not have a clear new role to hold on to. The old ego is tired, but the new center has not yet spoken clearly enough for you to trust it. And so you are in between. Mornings feel heavy not because of lack of sleep, but because you no longer have the familiar motivation to get up. The questions that once propelled you, who do I need to outperform today? What do I need to achieve? No longer work. You open your eyes and find yourself with no urgent reason to rush into the day. Someone who was once very ambitious may experience this especially clearly. They are used to setting goals, climbing ladders, controlling the future. They know how energizing victory can feel. But at a certain stage, they still work, still live, yet no longer feel that winning matters as much as before. Mornings feel heavy because the familiar motivation to spring up is gone. Not because of failure, but because even winning no longer has enough pull. I once witnessed this in a work environment. He was not going through a career crisis. On the contrary, everything was fairly stable. But he said that some mornings he sat on the bed for a long time, not because he was tired, but because he didn't see a reason to rush. Before, he had dozens of reasons to rush. Competition, goals, reputation. Now, he did not, and the absence of those reasons frightened him. He asked himself, "Am I slipping backward?" This question is very common, because society often teaches us that when the ego weakens, it means we are declining. But Jung saw it differently. For him, when the ego is no longer the center, it can be a sign that a deeper structure is preparing to take over the guiding role. And that transfer is always accompanied by a sense of strangeness, because you are learning how to live without controlling everything through sheer will. You might ask yourself, very honestly, lately, have you felt that you no longer want to be the main character in the story of your life? Not because you want to disappear, but because you no longer want to stand under the spotlight. Are you tired because of failure, or because the ego that once led you has reached the point where it needs rest? The answer does not need to be clear right away. The moment you dare to ask the question, you have already begun to understand the issue more accurately. In this phase, the solution does not lie in forcing yourself to return to the old, strong version. Every time you try, you will feel your body resist more strongly, because the old ego has already spent too much energy maintaining its central position. Instead, what is more necessary is allowing yourself to step back slightly, to observe more than to control. Not giving up, but loosening your grip. One small but important shift is to reduce the question, "Who do I have to be?" and increase the question, "What wants to happen through me?" The first question places the ego at the center. The second opens the possibility that life does not operate solely through personal will, but also through deeper movements. When you allow the second question to exist, you begin to sense very subtle signals. What makes you feel lighter? What makes you contract? What no longer needs effort? This does not turn you into a passive person. It simply changes who is holding the wheel. Instead of the ego constantly straining to decide, a deeper center begins to guide through a very subtle sense of right and wrong. You do not need to understand it immediately. You only need not to resist it. The final message of this section is very simple, yet very difficult. Self-respect no longer lies in mastering everything, but in daring to make room for a deeper center within yourself. Daring to trust that your value does not disappear when the ego steps back. Daring to trust that you do not need to be the center for life to continue, and perhaps to continue in a more truthful way. If tomorrow morning you still do not want to wake up early, try asking yourself, not, "What am I lacking?" but "What am I being invited to step away from?" Because sometimes, fatigue is not a sign that you are growing weaker. It is a sign that you no longer need to strain to remain at the center. And for many people, that is the very first turning point toward a deeper life. Number 8. When society is no longer your inner measure, there are mornings when you cannot get up. Not because you are weak, but because the rhythm of life waiting for you ahead no longer feels right. You are not opposing society. You do not hate your job. You have no intention of dropping everything to run away somewhere. It is simply that when you think about the schedule, the familiar grind, the pace that everyone considers normal, a very clear feeling arises within you. I no longer fit this rhythm. And it is precisely that misalignment that makes your body hesitate the moment you open your eyes. This feeling is often mistaken for a lack of motivation, but if you look closely, it does not resemble ordinary discouragement. You are not giving up. You simply no longer want to use the collective pace as the measure of your worth. In the past, you might have felt proud of being busy, of having a packed schedule, of always having something to do every day. Now, whenever you think about deadlines, about an endless chain of time markers, you feel tired in a very different way. Not tired from having too much to do, but tired because the meaning of that busyness no longer reaches you. Many people in this phase begin to feel out of place. They still live in the same society, the same city, the same daily rhythm, but inside, it is as if they are moving one beat slower than the world. You watch others run fast, talk endlessly about achievements, plans, goals. You listen, you understand, but you no longer feel compelled to run along. And immediately after that, a familiar feeling appears. Am I falling behind? You do not say it out loud, but you blame yourself heavily for that feeling. The core emotion here is the conflict between your inner rhythm and the collective rhythm. On one side is the outer world, with its clocks, KPIs, standards, and socially recognized milestones. On the other side is a very personal rhythm, slower, deeper, quieter, but truer to you at this moment. And when these two rhythms no longer align, the body is the first place to speak. It does not argue. It does not reason. It simply does not get up. Jung recognized this conflict very early on. He believed that when a person begins the process of individuation, that is, begins to live closer to their own unique nature, they will inevitably clash with collective norms. What once fit society may no longer fit the individual's inner process. Jung wrote, "The individual is obliged by the collective demands, and the collective is obliged by the individual's need for development. When the need for inner development no longer matches external demands, tension arises, and if that tension persists, it will manifest through the body." I once met someone like this in a work environment. She did not hate her job. In fact, she still did it well. But every morning, when she thought about having to keep up with the common pace, she felt heavy. Not because of laziness, not because of exhaustion in the usual sense, but because inside, she needed a different rhythm of life, one where value was not measured by response speed or hours of busyness. She did not dare to say this to anyone, for fear of being seen as lacking ambition. So her body spoke instead, by no longer stepping smoothly into the day. The hardest part of this phase is how easily you turn the blade inward. You ask yourself, why can't I keep up? Why can others do it and I can't? Am I becoming weaker? But these questions rest on a hidden assumption that the collective rhythm is right and yours is wrong. Jung did not see it that way. For him, each individual has their own process, and society is only one reference frame among many, not the absolute measure of inner life. You may still go to work, still fulfill your responsibilities, but inside, you no longer believe that keeping up is the ultimate goal. And it is this shift in belief that makes mornings difficult. Because morning is the moment when you must step most clearly into the collective rhythm. When that rhythm is no longer yours, each awakening feels like forcing yourself into a mold that has begun to feel too tight. You may be in a phase where slowing down is not regression, but recalibration. But because society rarely respects this recalibration, you easily feel that you are doing something wrong. You look around and see everyone busy, everyone rushing, everyone with a reason to wake up early, and you do not. And so you begin to doubt yourself, instead of questioning the rhythm that is being treated as the norm. You might try asking yourself, very directly, are you tired of life? Or are you tired of trying to live by a rhythm that no longer belongs to you? This question is not meant to push you away from society. but to help you see that the issue may not lie in your ability, but in the frame of reference. When you use a measure that no longer fits to judge yourself, fatigue is almost inevitable. The solution here is not to fight society, nor to abandon everything to live differently. It is much gentler than that. First, stop comparing yourself to other people's speed. Speed only has meaning when you are moving in the same direction. If the direction has changed, speed only adds confusion. Next, temporarily reduce exposure to pressure-inducing measures, success stories, invisible rankings, unspoken comparisons that carry great weight. Not to avoid reality, but to give your nervous system a chance to slow its pace. More importantly, begin listening to what your natural rhythm is asking for. Slowing down, pausing, or simply changing direction. The answer does not need to be clear right away. But when you allow the question to exist, your body will gradually resist less, because then, it no longer has to carry the task of pushing back against a rhythm you are still forcing yourself to follow. Boundaries, in this case, are not about opposing society. Boundaries are about not using society to invalidate your own genuine experience. You can still live among the collective, still participate, still contribute, but you no longer let the collective pace determine your inner worth. When you do that, mornings may not immediately become light, but they will become less heavy, not because you have caught up, but because you have stopped blaming yourself for not running along. And if one morning you still do not want to wake up early, try asking, not, "What is wrong with me?" but, "What rhythm do I need?" That question does not slow you down. It simply helps you avoid losing yourself in a world that is always urging you to go faster. Number 9. When silence is no longer an emptiness. After all the exhaustion, there comes a very quiet phase. Not dramatic, not tragic. You no longer feel like you are falling, nor do you feel that you have to brace yourself to keep going. Everything slows down naturally, almost without needing explanation. You do not want to do much, but you are no longer afraid of that. Silence is no longer a void that needs to be filled. It becomes a place you can stay, without feeling wrong, without feeling lacking. This phase often arrives after you have moved through enough resistance. The body has refused the morning. Old motivation has withdrawn. The ego has grown tired of steering. The social rhythm is no longer your inner measure. When all of that settles, what remains is not emptiness, but a kind of stillness that carries life. It is entirely different from the numbness or discouragement you felt before. It does not demand that you do anything. It simply invites you to stay. At this stage, your behavior changes in a very subtle way. You are no longer restless when you are not busy. In the past, if there was nothing to do, you would feel uneasy, as if you were wasting time. Now, that feeling is gone. You can sit quietly, look out the window, or simply lie there, without needing a reason. You speak less, explain less. Not because you are withdrawing, but because you no longer feel the need to constantly account for how you are living. Being alone is no longer frightening. Before, silence might have made you anxious, because within it were too many unanswered questions. Now, silence feels like a room that has been tidied up, not empty, just no longer cluttered. The emotion here is difficult to name. It is slightly solitary, but not sad. It is deep, but not heavy. It is quiet, but not dead. It is the feeling of an inner life standing on its own, without needing to constantly react. Many people mistake this phase for regression. From the outside, it may look like you are slowing down, losing enthusiasm, no longer trying. But if you are inside it, you will recognize that this is not a shutting off, but a settling after enough noise. Jung described this state very clearly when he wrote, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. When consciousness stops swinging violently between should and should not, between more and less, between moving forward and falling behind, it finds a new point of balance. And that balance is often very quiet." According to Jung, when consciousness stops over-controlling, psychic energy does not disappear. It simply stops running at the surface. It begins to operate at a deeper level, where fewer words and fewer actions are needed to prove anything. Silence at this point is not a lack of content. It is consciousness, no longer being disturbed. You no longer have to keep telling yourself the story of who you are. I once witnessed this in a close friend. In the past, every empty space in her day was filled with her phone, work, plans. Morning was the thing she hated most, because it opened into an endless list of things to do. After a long period of exhaustion, she began to live differently. Not because she resolved to change, but because she no longer had the energy to run. Strangely, after some time, she no longer needed to fill her days. She still lived, still worked, but more lightly. Mornings were no longer rushed, but they were no longer hated either. She said something very simple to me. Now I don't need today to mean anything special. I just need it to pass in a real way. That is the core of this phase. When silence is no longer a void, you are no longer afraid it will swallow you. On the contrary, you begin to realize that it is precisely in this silence that what is real finally has space to appear. Not as grand ideas or ambitious plans, but as very small sensations. A morning with softer light, a moment when you do not need to reply to a message immediately, a day that passes without you feeling that you have betrayed yourself. But precisely because it is quiet, many people begin to worry. Am I standing still for too long? Should I be doing something? Am I becoming lazy? These questions often arise when you do not yet fully trust your own stillness. And what is worth noticing is that the fear is not of silence itself, but of what might appear if you truly stay still. So I want to ask you one very direct question. Are you afraid of your silence, or are you afraid of what will be revealed if you are no longer busy enough to avoid it? There are emotions, inner truths, that only emerge when there is no longer noise covering them. And if you have reached this phase, it may be because you are finally strong enough to see them without panicking. The solution here, if it can even be called a solution, is even less action-oriented. You do not need to force yourself to make progress. You do not need to set goals for recovery. You do not need to turn stillness into a project. What you need to do, paradoxically, is to do nothing in the sense of control. Allow purposeless gaps to exist. Allow a day without a climax. Allow yourself to be present without having to explain why you are this way. You can make space for stillness without a reason, not meditation, not a practice, not healing in a technical sense, just staying still, long enough for the body and mind to adjust their own rhythm. Jung believed that this self-regulation is a deep instinct of the psyche, as long as we do not intervene too early with the ego's impatience. At the deepest level, self-worth is no longer about proving that you are living well, moving forward, or doing fine. The deepest self-worth is when you no longer need to prove that you are living. You simply need to be present, and that is enough. When you stop seeing silence as the enemy, mornings change as well. They are no longer something to overcome, nor something to conquer. They are simply another time of day where you wake up not out of obligation, but because you are still here. And perhaps that is the final thing your mind has been trying to say throughout this entire journey. Not that you need to try harder, not that you must return to who you were before, but that you have gone far enough to no longer need to run. When you accept that, silence is no longer frightening. It becomes ground. And from that ground, whatever comes later, if it comes at all, will come from a truer place. We grow up with the belief that if we try hard enough, stay disciplined enough, and remain strong enough, life will eventually fall into place. That if we just wake up earlier and push ourselves more, everything will be fine. But reality is sometimes more complicated than that. There are phases when what exhausts you the most is not the work itself, but having to continue living according to a rhythm that no longer belongs to you. There are mornings when you cannot get up, not because you are weak, but because something inside you is refusing a way of living that has reached its end. Carl Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." Perhaps that exhaustion is not an enemy, but an unconscious mirror, reflecting what you have avoided for far too long. You do not need to fix yourself immediately. Sometimes, Growth is simply the courage to slow down, to trust the signals from within, and to admit that you are changing. If you see yourself somewhere in this story, remember, you are not lost. You are returning. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos on psychology, Jungian philosophy, and the journey back to the self. Click the notification bell to be alerted as soon as we release new content. We always have deep and honest conversations waiting for you. Thank you for staying with us until the very end, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next videos.